Ukrainian troops are currently liberating the strategic city of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region, very cautiously and with great care to minimize potential losses and ensure the safety of both their forces and the civilian population. This was stated by Viktor Trehubov, head of communications for the Joint Forces Group, during the United News Marathon broadcast. He notes that the Russians continue their attempts to storm Kupiansk, in particular to justify the false statement by Russian dictator Putin about the alleged capture of the city. Ukrainian soldiers point out that the turning point in Kupiansk did not happen as unexpectedly as it might seem. After all, since mid-November, the Russian army gradually began to lose its logistics, and the situation for the enemy increasingly started to resemble an encirclement. Trehubov added that the Russians are trying to get ammunition by air, but the Ukrainian armed forces are intercepting these attempts and continue to eliminate the invaders.
According to preliminary estimates from our intelligence, as of the end of last week, there were 40 active call signs on the radios. This means that 40 people are actively using radios. 40 unique radio users. Usually there is about one radio for every 3 or maybe 4 people, so we estimate there are somewhere between 100 and 200 of them. According to our estimates, it's probably closer to 200. Viktor Trehubov, head of communications for the Joint Forces Group, speaking live on the Yedini Novini Marathon. Since
the beginning of the day, the Russians have tried 71 times to break through the Ukrainian defenses along the entire front line. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In the Konstantinivka direction, the defense forces repelled 11 assaults. Another 9 enemy attacks were repelled in the Alexandrivka sector of the front. And on the southern front, at the Huliapole bridgehead, Ukrainian defenders stopped 8 assaults by the occupying forces. Almost a third of all today's battles took place in the Pokrovsk direction. The Russians are trying to break through into the village of Frushine, which is located north of Pokrovsk. Analysts explain that the Russian occupiers want to cut off the Ukrainian army's logistics for the Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration, and Frushine itself is a key link in this logistics chain. At the same time, the Vostok military group reported that Ukrainian forces have recently been actively organizing additional supply routes to Pokrovsk and Mirnograd in the Donetsk region.
As for Manavrad, fighting is taking place inside the city, but the situation there is complicated and is explained by the fact that there is a narrow bottleneck between Krasny Liman and Solomy Rivno-Svitlo, making movement very difficult. And the enemy is throwing all its forces to capture the Pokrovsk-Belgorod agglomeration. We heard that reserves have been redeployed in the form of the 76th Airborne Division, which is considered elite. Our forces are trying to attack as well, including mechanized assaults that took place last week. Our drone operators are taking action. These enemy soldiers are being eliminated, so the situation there is still developing.
Analysts say there is also increased activity by Russian troops in the south of the country, specifically in the Gulyapol and Oryhov directions. The sections of the front north of Gulyapol in the Zaporizhia region and up to the village of Pokrovsky in the Dnipropetrovsk region are considered important.
They're trying to capitalize on their success and encircle us, pushing further and further ahead with 2 lines. But they're not succeeding. As a result, since they're unable to advance with mechanized assaults, they're trying to wipe out our defensive line from the air. Unfortunately, airstrikes with Ka bombs are a huge problem, not only in the south, but also on other front lines. Our command is fully aware of the critical problem at hand, and is actively taking decisive and comprehensive steps to effectively neutralize it. Let's put it very cautiously and with great care, ensuring all measures are thoroughly considered.
The Russians lost nearly 1,000 soldiers and dozens of pieces of equipment in the past day. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, 980 Russian occupiers were eliminated at the front, and the total combat losses of the Russian Federation since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine have already approached 1,190,000 people. In addition, over the past day, the defense forces destroyed 2 tanks, 10 armored fighting vehicles, more than 60 artillery systems, and 3 multiple rocket launch systems. They also struck 2 air defense systems, more than 600 drones, and 207 units of the invaders' vehicles.
Alexei Hedman, retired mayor, National Guard of Ukraine, military analyst. Hello, Alexei.
Hello.
Good evening.
So, another loss. Another submarine?
And minus $400 million.
But a submarine with Caliber missiles, with calibers on board, no less. Well, that's a serious loss.
These are diesel submarines that they had in the Black Sea Fleet. We destroyed one submarine right in the port when it was there. It was undergoing repairs or some kind of maintenance. But this case is interesting because everyone just saw that video. So it's the port, and it worked out. Somehow, through the pier, you see the pier, there should have been some security systems there, but somehow the Russians didn't do their job properly, thank God. And our boats got through, got past the defense lines, and so did the underwater drones. They have one left, as far as I remember. There were 3, now minus 1. I think there's just one submarine left, and these submarines can carry Caliber missiles. You are absolutely right. But now there's one less submarine with calibers. It's especially dangerous when calibers are launched from submarines, because when ships go out, we can see where they are. They don't enter the strike zone. At the very least, are Neptunes, but we can see and know that they're preparing to launch, so we can react in time, at least somehow. A submarine can get closer, surface, launch, submerge again, and that's it. It's gone. And then the reaction time is significantly reduced. And now, well, just one sub, if you look at the statistics, how many are left, I think they have only one diesel submarine left in the Black Sea Fleet, the Russians.
Well, it says here that in total, the Russian Federation had 10 Varshavyanka-class submarines, but it's unclear where they were based and how many are still operational.
It's not certain that this is the Black Sea Fleet. Yeah, that's accurate information. It's not some kind of military secret, but it's definite. It could be the Baltic Fleet, maybe the Far Eastern Fleet, but it's definitely not the Black Sea Fleet.
Alexei, and here I want to point out something more, Yes, the loss. According to estimates, as of 2022, its approximate value is $400 million. Right now, I want to talk more not about the quantity or the cost, but about vulnerability. Just imagine, who would have thought if someone had told me in 2022 that, besides the fact that there will be practically nothing left of the Black Sea Fleet in Crimea, thanks to Sea Baby and other underwater and surface drones, and it even reaches as far as Novorossiysk. Can you imagine just how vulnerable the so-called Second Army of the world has become?
The fleet, well, when the flagship of the fleet sinks, it's like losing the battle standard. According to military rules, by tradition, the unit is disbanded. The fleet is disbanded if the flagship is lost. But the Russians, they talk a lot about traditions, about how things have always been done, but they don't even follow their own military traditions. The Russian fleet, the Russian Black Sea Fleet today, according to the American Institute for the Study of War, is only fulfilling about 15% of its function as a naval fleet. That doesn't mean only 15% of the ships are left. We've destroyed about 1/3 of their ships, both surface and submarines combined. But the fleet, considering that it has basically locked itself up in Novorossiysk and is practically afraid to go out to sea, well, that's the current assessment from the Institute. The research shows it's forced to perform only about 15% of its function. But after they sank, let's say the submarine, I think even 15% is too high now. I think maybe only about 10% is left. And
What do you think, Alexei? Why didn't the launch of the Proton M rocket from Baikonur, which was scheduled for December 15th, take place? This, too, you could say, is in light of the negotiation process. About the peace plan project, so to speak. And this blow to the space industry, and the submarine, too, does all of this somehow affect the negotiation process? Because it's like Koshchei's death, you could say. Well, his victory, the time that he had.
Koshchei is hidden there. Yes, the thing is, failed rocket launches, failed launches of those Sarmats and others. An intercontinental ballistic missile is an attempt by the Russian Federation to put pressure on June 1st on the United States to show that they have weapons. Indeed, it is a weapon. An intercontinental ballistic missile is quite dangerous. When it enters near space, the warhead on top splits into several warheads, from 3 to 9. This is called a missile bus in slang, meaning it opens up and these warheads fall almost vertically from above onto the target they're attacking, and intercepting them is quite difficult. And they show that they have such weapons that the Russians can do this. That they can attack, if necessary, the United States, that the US is not safe. Then there are these talks about submarines with some kind of Poseidon 100 megatons, more powerful than the Tsar Bomba. So, it's all just talk. As for the launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles, it's been one disaster after another with the Sarmats. If I'm not mistaken, out of 10 launches, only one was successful. The rest either didn't launch at all, or they exploded at the start. Right at the beginning in flight. This shows that the Russians haven't perfected the technology for producing such missiles. This equipment is still pretty raw. It's entirely possible, at least in theory, that over time, if they don't rush and follow the proper procedures, sooner or later such a missile could become fully functional, meaning all the launches would be successful and it could reach the targets it was built for, but that's not the case now. Still, the Russians keep trying to scare the whole world by claiming they have these kinds of missiles. And after these failed launches, maybe even thanks to some of our actions, some kind of web, I'm not sure how to say it in Russian, maybe thanks to a system, there's this so-called black door, Blado. Well, I can say a couple of words about it. It's not a military secret. So there's a lot of talk about the Russians, about how they have powerful weapons, but in reality, everyone sees that the weapons aren't all that powerful anymore. And the black door is kind of halfway there. It's a conspiracy theory, or rather, not a theory, but information. A lot of Russian missiles that were produced before Russia came under sanctions were made using Western technologies, including Western microchips, American, European, and Japanese microchips. And these microchips had what's called a black door built in, so the chip seems to work fine, everything's normal, it can perform its functions, but if it receives a command from outside, it switches to a different mode, and then the missile doesn't go anywhere. It's a dud. Nothing works anymore. Maybe this is exactly how they access Russian electronics, through this so-called, this infamous black door. And maybe that's why their missiles keep crashing. So they test it, everything works, it starts flying or tries to launch, the black door opens, a command is sent, and that's it. The electronics switch to a different mode. Basically, it just breaks down.
Speaking of the front lines, let's also take a moment to discuss the situation in Kupiansk. Up to 200 Russian occupiers remain trapped there. Ukraine's defense forces are liberating the city without storming it. This was reported on the United News Marathon broadcast by Viktor Tregobov, the head of communications for the Joint Forces grouping. According to him, Russian units have effectively found themselves isolated and are gradually being pushed out of the city. He also noted, the process can't be quick because the occupiers are using civilians, including children, as human shields. Ukrainian defenders are acting in a way that prevents civilian casualties, avoids unnecessary destruction, and minimizes losses among their own troops. If possible, let's hear some comments and then continue.
According to preliminary estimates from our intelligence, as of the end of last week, there were 40 active call signs on the radios. This means that 40 people are actively using radios, 40 unique radio users. Usually there's about one radio for every 3 people, maybe 4, accordingly. We estimate there are somewhere between 100 and 200 of them. According to our assessment, it's probably closer to 200. Viktor Tregobov, head of the Communications Directorate and the Joint Forces Group, live on the United News Marathon.
Dictator Putin spoke about the encirclement of troops, but he mixed up which troops. He meant Russian troops. How do you assess the situation there? And how difficult is it really for our military to operate, considering there are still civilians there, whom the occupiers are using as human shields?
There's an army joke about accuracy. He was standing on the shore of a lake, shot at the water, and missed. That's pretty much how it is with Putin's comments about the encirclement. He got it wrong. It was the Russian troops who got surrounded, not ours. Why shouldn't they be stormed? But they're using it for ratings. Well, they're the ones who took hostages. What else can you call it? Nothing else. And obviously, no one is going to storm in and risk the lives of the hostages. Especially since, what's the point? They're blocked in. The only thing that needs to be tightened is, let's say, passport control. The people who are coming out from those blocked territories could be civilians, or they could be disguised. Most likely, they've already changed clothes. It could be a Russian serviceman, so just check their documents and don't do anything else. Don't touch her. They won't last long in there. They even need to... We're not even talking about fighting. I think they've already hidden their weapons a long time ago and changed clothes. Well, they still need something to eat. I don't think there's really... There are stores operating in the surrounded territory, so they can stay there for a while. Well, and they're discreet. Well, I'm sure there are even loudspeakers working there, telling them, just like in the movies, telling them to surrender, that they'll be treated according to Red Cross rules, and that there won't be any torture. You can add to the exchange fund. You know, even when they offer Russian servicemen to surrender, they offer it in different ways. Like, we even take it upon ourselves, just imagine, that we will give documents to Russians who have been captured by us, who have surrendered, stating that they were not taken prisoner by surrendering, but that they were captured in battle, unconscious, and so on, so that they won't face criminal prosecution in the Russian Federation. So basically we say surrender, and we'll even give you proper documents, and you'll be able to go back home. But if you get caught again, if God forbid you go to fight once more, then there will be no mercy. As they say, there won't be any. That's why I'm sure that inside this encircled group, well, I don't know, it's hard to say if it's half or some new portion, but I think most of them are already ready to surrender, because they understand that otherwise, if they resist, they'll simply be destroyed. There's no chance. Only captivity remains.
Now, about the deep strikes, this is also very important. Let's talk about it. We see that Ukrainian long-range drones are striking more and more often, and quite successfully. Russian oil refineries. Again, I'd like to emphasize here that they are bypassing Russian air defense systems with complete ease. What's going on? These supposedly vaunted air defense systems, and yet they're letting drones through. You'd think they wouldn't.
Vaunted, as they call them. You know, when someone praises themselves, most of the time, it's, let's say, a bit of an exaggeration. Why are drones getting through? Well, you know, we present the information starting like this. We report how many aerial targets there were over our territory, about 150. How many were destroyed, how many, unfortunately, managed to break through our air defense system, which locations were hit, what damage was done, and what losses were incurred. If there are any fatalities or injuries, we report that as well. When Russians talk about shooting down our drones, in that sense, they're telling the truth. They do shoot down some of our drones, of course. But they don't say how many drones actually got through and what kind of damage was inflicted. On the military-industrial complex, or simply on army units, or on certain energy facilities within the Russian Federation. They don't talk about that. They always brag about how many drones they've destroyed. Well, you know, even if just a third of the drones get through, we also factor in the loss rate. We know perfectly well that some of the drones will be shot down by Russian air defenses, but the ones that make it through, be. Just showed a naval attack, but as for the air attack, It's actually not bad that. For now, Russians see our air attacks as some kind of show, filming videos with their own commentary. It feels like they're watching a New Year's or Christmas fireworks display. They still don't realize just how dangerous this is for them, among other things. They're being asked, not just by Sobyanin, but by the authorities of other cities as well, not to post videos on social media. Yeah, but they keep doing it anyway. And that actually helps us figure out how to adjust our strikes. So keep it up, Russians. Keep doing it. We'll even give you a medal for that.
And may there be even more of these kinds of fireworks. Alexei, thank you so much. Which member? Yes.
And for you, a big saddle, a rug, and a TV. They'll hand you your gift right away, or maybe they will. Remember after that, yes.
Funny cartoon. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexei.
Thank you, Alexei Hepme. Retired Major of the National Guard of Ukraine, military analyst, was with us on the line.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.